Everyone, today we have Jessica Hinton with us. She's currently, if you could see, she's outside because she is living the RV life, and we're going to definitely dive into that. But before she was doing the RV life, she was in the military for 16 years before getting out, which is another thing we'll dive into. Jessica, I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you, Brittany. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's start off with, why did you join the military?
So I joined the military. I'm originally born and raised in Hawaii, hence all the thick clothes right now. I'm in Tennessee and it's freezing. So I'm used to the nice warm weather, being at a beach, although I'm at a beach in Tennessee, which is kind of odd. But being born and raised in Hawaii
my gosh, okay.
awesome. Yes. However, my parents were both addicts. My dad more so than my mom, but I didn't have that foundation of, doing better for myself or knowing where to go and how to get into college or be an entrepreneur. I didn't have any of that. But my parents were both actually in the Air Force prior. So my mom would always encourage me, Jess, if you're going to do anything, join the military, join the military. And she was a clerk typist. Nothing against clerk typists, but she always told me not to do that. She's like, pick a job that you can have a trait to fall back on. So my dad is a refrigeration mechanic. And so what did I do? I followed my dad's footsteps. So I was in the Air Force for 16 years as a refrigeration mechanic. I can fix pretty much anything that heats or cools, ice machines, boilers, chillers, refrigerators, all of it. But those are some of the skills, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why I joined, because I didn't have any outs. And I joined the National Guard. So I was an active Air Force. I was in the National Guard the whole time. And I didn't want to leave Hawaii. Who does? So I joined the National Guard.
I've never been, but I want to go.
Well, it's got to be on your bucket list. You got to make it happen. And when you do, let me know. I'll show you I'll tell you all the good places. Yes. So that's kind of why I joined, was to be somebody, do something, make myself, get out of that kind of situation. But still, I wanted to return back to Hawaii. And then I married a Marine at the time who then brought me to California. And so that's how I ended up in California for so long.
Are you still in California? Like home base in California?
Oh, actually, I'm in Tennessee. My business is in California. And then we own a couple homes. We just sold one of them and we're in the process of selling the other one. And this whole quest is to find our new home. So I would say California was our home. Now our home is on wheels and it takes us wherever we go. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, we're definitely going to dive into that. But let's continue talking just a little bit more about your military experience. Like, what are some of the skills and experience in the military from your experience? So the good, the bad, the ugly.
And everything in between. So like I mentioned, I'm a refrigeration mechanic. So pretty cool, there wasn't many, especially being a female, there wasn't really many of us. When I first joined, there was about, I think 200 of us in school, and I was the only girl for like the first few months. And then finally a few other women just started joining in the bandwagon there to be refrigeration mechanics. So it was cool to learn the traits, refrigeration mechanic. I always say there should be more women doing it because, and I make this silly joke, and my husband's a mechanic. He's actually an electrician. So he doesn't actually fall into this category. But most guys that I've encountered, especially in the military, do. And it's when there's a problem, instead of stepping back, and I think it's in everything. So, I don't want to categorize everybody, but I would say in the gist, when there's a situation, women, I think we most likely stand back and we kind of take a look and see what's going on and then find the problem and then go and attack. In my experience in the military, when there was an issue, all the other guys in my shop would just run and go and fix and start touching and start maneuvering and start, and if you would just take a step back and look at the problem, you could go directly to the issue. And so that was something I always try to teach my airmen coming up, was like, hey, take a step back. What is it not doing and where did it stop? Let's go to the sequence of events and, go back there. And so that was one thing that I definitely learned, was being mechanical and tools. I didn't have that really too much growing up. My dad was a refrigeration mechanic, but he was also a cocaine addict. So it wasn't like he was teaching us how to turn wrenches or anything like that. So I also learned leadership. I think that was the biggest thing, especially being a business owner and an entrepreneur. That leadership aspect was huge. The good, the bad, and everything in between. I'm super efficient. Like, I think that's something I pride myself in and my business. And I remember, going up the ranks and seeing things that were done. And I'm like, oh, it could have been done so much easier and so much more efficient if we did this. And I would always be told, well, you don't have enough stripes on your arm to make that decision. And that was something that I brought into my business. And I was like, I don't care if you're the if you're me, or if you got hired yesterday, if you have a way to make our business more efficient and more profitable, let's do it. I'm not going to tell you that we've been doing this for hundreds of years and this is just the way it's got to be. And I think that's why our business was so successful. And, you know, seeing different other businesses that have a similar mission or their CEOs, we are a fine running machine. We are, you know, I mean, I probably work today an hour, if that, because everything just works. It's efficient.
That's
and I
awesome.
think that's something that I learned in the military, that you can work hard. But then the Air Force always prides itself, work smarter, not harder. But man, there's some people that just like to work harder, and that's not me. I'd much rather do the smart. So I was also the FRG leader on my early airman stages. There was a couple deployments that I was helping take care of the family that stayed back, of course, so the airmen left. And so I was helping with the family aspect. And I learned a lot. I learned about how to care for people, how to, you know, get in tune with them and understand what their needs were. And then once you understood what their needs were, they needed. And that was something that I, again, in my business now, I do my best. I'm human, right? I'm not perfect, but I do my best to know what's going on in my employees' lives, to, you know, encourage them in ways that I think that areas of that they need to be improved, to acknowledge the areas that they are successful in achieving, you know. And so I think that the military kind of gave me those those small little skills that have been huge in my business. One last thing I learned was also I put together a leadership course for our squadron. I saw some, you know, the difference between a boss and a leader. I'm all about being a leader, not a boss. So I put together this whole course. People came in on their days off of work and they came in, they took this whole course with us, and I had experts in these fields come in and take the course, you know, certificates of completion, everything, the whole gamut. And unfortunately, my bosses didn't make a priority to attend this leadership course. And it was very much so that was evident when my decision of getting out of the military, and we'll talk about that later, but it was just the difference between a leader and a boss. And I never, ever want to be a boss. I always want to be a leader. And a couple of my employees that had no longer worked for us for one reason or another, I put up a posting for another position of the job, and I had 3 of my previous employees reach out and say, "Hey, Jess, can I work for you again?" And I think that says a lot about being able to, you know, when your old employees want to come back and work for you, that says something about the way you lead. And I definitely hope that my employees know that they are cared for and that they're appreciated and that I couldn't do it without them.
Yeah, I love that, because one of the things I've always said is that people, they don't leave jobs, they leave bosses. So in your definition, what is the difference between a boss and a leader?
A leader cares. I think that's a hands down. A leader cares. And it's not necessarily, it's not for profitable, like a profit gain, or they genuinely care. And if you care about them, they're going to care about you and what you care about. You know, in the military, it's always, oh, it's the mission. It's the mission. So, but like, really, who are the people that lead the mission? It's the people. And so I think, you know, and they've been doing it for hundreds of years. Well, I think we're a new generation and we need people that, you know, not to hold our hands. And that's not, you know, that's the last thing we need, is somebody to not be capable of, you know, doing life on their own. But hey, my husband had cancer. And when my husband had cancer, we didn't have one person call us from our squadron. My husband was in my squadron.
Wow, really?
We didn't have one person call to see how he was doing until after. And when they called, they asked him if he had the shot. It wasn't to call and do a checkup to see how he's doing. It was, hey, has he taken that COVID shot? So that's the difference between a leader and a boss. Yeah.
Wow. I just can't believe that happened.
Yeah, and it wasn't like, you know, in the active duty, you're only in for like 2-3 months or years, and then you switch over. I was in the National Guard, so I was in the squadron for 12 years. So there's relationships that have built over this time. Yeah. So difference between a leader and a boss, a leader cares.
What are some ways that leaders can show that they care?
I'm all about, there's different types of leaders. Here we are at this leadership course. I'm a servant leader. That's the way that I like to lead, and I think that's the best. So leading from the back, right? You're the last one to eat. Make sure that everybody else gets what they need, and then you go in and make sure that, you know, you're the first one there, the last one to leave. You care for the small things, right? If it's my employee's child's birthday and I know that, I'm going to call him or I'm going to text him and just say, hey, happy birthday. You know, just it's and it doesn't have to be this big grand thing. It's just the fact that your heart is in there and that you care, you know? So I think that's kind of I'm getting a little cold. Let me just put my hands in my pocket. Sorry. But yeah, I think that's the difference between being a leader and a boss.
So you talked about that you were in for 16 years, and it sounds like you could have easily kept going and being this like great leader that the Air Force does need. So what made you decide to get out?
Well, there was quite a few factors. I was online for a deployment, which I was, ready to go. I didn't really want to go. Who wants to go on a deployment, right? But I was online. I was getting everything ready to go. And then my husband, who I had just married, we got married in July. And then I think it was September, we found out that he had cancer. And I was supposed to be deployed in January. The beginning part of January. And so he had testicular cancer. And so they removed one of them and we thought he was good to go. And so we continued to live life, and unbeknownst to us that the day before Christmas, and so still in line for deployment, all of this, his cancer had metastasized into his abdomen and his right lung. And I was hoping not to go on this deployment because my husband just had cancer. And even though they removed the tumor, it wasn't a for sure thing. And sure enough, it wasn't. But during that time, they were very adamant that because my husband was in the same squadron, he was lined to deploy, that they couldn't lose both of us. And so I had to go. And I kept telling him, I was like, if your wife had cancer, like breast cancer, and they removed the tumor, would you leave? Absolutely, I would leave. This is my calling. It's what I'm supposed to do. I'm like, well, I'm not that way. Like, this is my husband, and he's got cancer. Mm-hmm. And, so, and also my ex-husband, who I met, who brought me to California, he's still in the Marines, and he was deployed at the time. So I have two older daughters, 14 and 15 currently, and they were going to have to fly to Texas because they didn't have any parents to watch them, because I wasn't going to leave them with my husband who had cancer. That wouldn't have been fair. So they would have had to leave. And then I call it by the grace of God, but having cancer and me being pregnant didn't help. Well, it definitely added a whole nother layer.
Oh my goodness.
6 days after we found out his cancer had metastasized, I found out I was pregnant. So then we went through cancer and pregnancy together, which I finally met my best friend, my mechanic that I've always been wanting. I'm handy. And so trying to find a man who was handy and I could get things done, and go-getter was like, I don't want a finance guy. I want someone who can help build me a house. And I finally found him, and then he had cancer. Yeah. And I was pregnant with our baby, but by the grace of God, 40 days before my son was born, my husband got to ring the cancer-free bell, and he is 100% cancer-free.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that about your husband. I was like, girl, this is heartening. Like, I am so sorry you went through that. So all of this is going on. You're about to go deployed. Like, did you feel like you were taken care of by your squadron?
No. So I sat down with my commander and I told him what was going on, and he told me that my only option was to get a hardship package. And if I didn't get a hardship package, he said that it was his, I don't think the word was pleasure, but it was along those same lines. It was going to be his mission to see that I get a dishonorable discharge. And I was completely taken back.
No.
Like, what? And he was like, you needed to go on this deployment and you were lined for it. And the fact that you are not going to go, you better come up with something. And I was like, game on. I was so taken back. I was hurt. I was upset. I was just like, I couldn't believe what I had just heard. But I'm a go-getter. And 28 pages later, I've got letters from everybody and their mother, every doctor, every therapist, you name it. I got it all. I presented it up and got an honor. I got an honorable, and I got a hardship package where I was able to get out. So, and then the commander of the wing, of the mission support group commander came up and said, Jess, I can't believe that this is happening. I'm so sorry. Is there anything we can do to retain you? No. After this, I'm good. My business was successful. I was able to support my family. I didn't need this. I did it because I wanted to protect America. Maybe I couldn't go on a deployment, but I could do the back side of it, and I could make sure that, the troops at home were fine, and, take care of those things. Considering my husband was struggling with cancer, I couldn't actually go, but I could do what I could. But after that, I was not no, but hell no. I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I probably would have done the same thing. Like, that is just so fucked up. Like, what the hell? You're dealing with all this stuff, and your commander is, like, pretty much saying, like, no, you're going to get a dishonorable. So you're doing all this paperwork to make sure you had, make sure that didn't happen. Like, did you kind of go over his head to maybe get him taken out of the leadership position so someone else didn't go through this?
At that point, it was the middle of COVID too. And I think a lot of it had to do with, I'm a little bit more on the side of, I refused to get the shot. I refused to wear the mask. I was not, so I had that kind of, and my husband I think there's only 2 people on the entire base when he ended up finally getting out that didn't get the shot. And so there really wasn't many of us left. And because I think we were all in good graces until I put my foot in the concrete and said that I wasn't going to do it. And then at that point, they just were like, we don't need you. We'll dishonor you because whatever reason we can get, and you can just figure it out on your own. And so I think that was what they were holding on to. They were upset because I wasn't meeting their numbers.
Me too. We're pretty much done at like 16, and you were so close to that 20-year mark. And I'm not familiar with how the active guard works as far as like pension, but is it like active duty where if you do 20 years you get a pension?
Yeah, but you don't collect it until you're 65. So you're eligible for, and then
gotcha.
You also get medical. You have to pay a little bit extra for your medical, but you're still in that entitlement for medical. So I didn't get anything, and I remember like so many people were like, "Jess, it's just 4 more years. It's just, when you get back in, you're going to do your 4 years." I don't ever want to say I'd never, because God makes a jokery of that, you never say never, because sometimes it is a yes, but on my own terms, I would not. That's just something that, it's okay. And then again, I know I talk about God a lot, but he's pretty awesome. And when we were up, when they were doing all of the riots, my husband was up right before he got cancer, his back, like really bad. And to the point where like he bends down right now, he can't feel his knee, and he's Mr. Fix It, but man, is he in pain when he's fixing stuff. And so he was able to go get a VA, and he has 100%. And so now we have medical.
Oh, that's good.
And so God just provided. He just took care of us, in what seemed like a really shitty situation. He saw us through, and he made sure that we're still cared for, we're still taken care of, and so we all have medical. We all can still go on base if we ever decided to. We still have that ability to do as well.
Well, I'm glad that worked out that way, because a lot of cases sometimes that doesn't happen. But I've always said too, because I'm a believer in God. God, it's God's plan. God works in mysterious ways. Everything happens for a reason. But I do have one question. Like, do you ever regret not doing 4 more years? I know you're taken care of and everything worked out, but do you ever regret or kind of wish you were able to make it to that 20?
I think my mom passed away when, I think it's been 9 years. And that was always her thing to me. She was like, "Jess, just retire. Just retire." And so that would be my only, I guess, desire to make that, is just to please her, even though she's not here anymore. I would still want to just make her proud. But I think I've made her proud in other ways, with what we're doing now, raising my family, with the business, and just, I guess, my character, I think, is the biggest and most important thing that she would be grateful. She'd be happy. She'd be pleased with who I became and who I've, what I said no to, what I said yes to, Yeah. And then remind me the question one more time, because there was something that I was going to say and I totally forgot.
It was if you regretted not making it to 20, or wish that you had.
My identity was wrapped in the military. It was wrapped into it. That's who I was. I was a mom, and I didn't, for the longest time, I started the business officially in 2008, but I joined it right out of high school. And so I was always in the military. That's who I was. That's what I did, And so for me, it was a real cultural shock of not saying, and then going to ask for military discounts, they're like, "Oh, your husband?" "No, it's me," and taking that kind of pride of I am in the military,
Yes.
Kind of thing. And now I'm not, and I think that was a hard pill to swallow. But learning that my identity...
So how did you end up finding your identity?
My husband helped a lot with just what was important in life. When I owned so I still own Barefoot Vacation Rentals, but it was a lot bigger before I decided to make this change. And I worked 24 hours, 7 days a week running this business. Vacation rentals, people are checking in at 2 a.m. sometimes, and you have to be available and ready. And you can't pay somebody 24 hours, 7 days a week to always be available. So you got to take those calls and stuff. My identity, realizing that it's not who I am to others, but who I am to my family, and knowing the importance of being a mom as being a wife is number one. one, and then being a mom being number two, and being intentional and present and finding joy in that, and not having this. I'd say for the first year or so, I had this desire to want to still prove myself. Well, look at me. Look what I've done. And I was thinking about this as I was coming on the podcast. I'm like, am I still doing that? And there might be a portion to be very transparent, there may be that. I think my biggest desire to be on the podcast is for hope for people, though. I want them to hear my heart and to know that it's possible to, if you just step out and just do it and you don't turn back, you just keep going, you can do anything you want. And so that's really where my heart is. But there may be, to just be very vulnerable and transparent, there may be a bit of, I'm still here, So that's, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't, realize that strength comes in all shapes and forms, and everyone's story can be powerful and can be motivating and inspiring to other people. So I am so glad that you decided to do this podcast.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So I know we already talked about the military, and I know we've kind of mentioned that you're on an RV trip right now. So why this path of living in an RV, traveling the United States? Because I'm gonna tell you, my husband has been trying to get me to do this when he retires, and I'm like, no. So please try to convince me on why. So why this path?
So I remember I told you that my husband had cancer, and it totally changed our lives. And I don't wish that on anybody, ever. That was the worst. But learning the importance of now. And life is so short. You don't know if you're going to have tomorrow. And, on this path that we're predominantly the youngest of anybody that's doing this lifestyle most of the time. But yeah, I would say it's life is short, and you don't know if you're going to get tomorrow. And we didn't know if we were going to have tomorrow. And seeing all of these older people, and nothing wrong with doing it at an older age. I'm glad they're out doing it now. But it takes them a little longer to get into the RV. It takes them a little longer to do that hike. It takes them a little longer to, and they're not doing it with their kids. Their kids are all grown up, and they're all old, and they're living their own lives. And so we get to enjoy this with our kids, and we get to make those experiences and have those memories together. We get to see so many cool things. We've been up to Boise, Idaho, and we went to a waterfall hot spring, and it was 40 degrees outside, and we're under a hot spring in our bathing suits. Who gets to do those types of things, You do it if you want to do it. You make it happen if you want it to happen. And so the memories, the experiences, the people we've met, it's one in a lifetime opportunity. I couldn't recommend it more. But you have to be okay with downsizing. And again, you learn the importance of stuff. I lived in California. We had a really expensive house, and we had really nice things, and we sold it and everything in it. And now we're in a 35-foot RV.
Yeah.
Loving life. I have 4 pairs of pants.
That's amazing.
And 2 jackets. This is one of them.
I have 4 pairs of pants that I rotate.
Yeah. It's in the closet, right? It's mine too.
So, yeah, I know. I probably should get rid of more. Maybe that'll be my New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
You said you have 2 daughters, right?
My older 2 daughters are 14 and 15. They actually decided to stay in California. They didn't want to do this lifestyle. Initially, we were just going to move to Texas. And then the girls were like, no, we don't want to move to Texas. We want to stay in California. And their dad's in California. So they decided to stay with him. But when the girls decided they weren't going to come, then my husband's like, well, Jess, what do you think? Instead of just moving straight to Texas, what if we explore the U.S. for a year before we do that? And so my sister's in Texas, and so that's why we were going to move there. This whole, idea. And now that we've been traveling around, now we're like, well, is Texas really it? Maybe it's Tennessee. Maybe it's Oklahoma. And I'm originally from Hawaii, so to think that I would go to any of those places is mind-blowing.
Yeah, that's saying something, girl. I am currently in Oklahoma, and I'm like, get me the hell out of here.
I don't know. I loved Oklahoma. I loved it. It was just something about it. I don't know. Maybe it was cheap land. I don't know. That could have been it, too.
Maybe I'm just in the wrong area.
Yeah. Yeah, what part of Oklahoma are you in?
So my goodness, middle of nowhere, at Altus, Oklahoma. So my husband's still Air Force. So we're in Altus Air Force Base.
Okay.
In middle of nowhere. Yeah, you probably have never heard of it because that's how small it is.
It's south, right? South Oklahoma?
We're 30 minutes from the border of Texas. Okay. Yeah. I've been, so very close to the border of Texas.
Okay. We're looking on eastern Oklahoma is where we're looking.
So, oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So, would your daughters move down with you? Like, how does that work as far as, say, co-parenting?
So that's the goal. But I raised my girls to have opinions and decisions. And of course, you know, it may not be the best that I want. Like, and that was really emotionally difficult for me to leave them. And I begged them, come on, stay with me. You know, we'll have fun. We'll do cool things. I promise. But their hearts, they're in high school. They wanted to stay with their friends. They wanted to, you know, do fun things with their high school friends. And I've been there. I've done it. And, you know, the RV life, you're here 5 days. And then we got 2 days of traveling, and then we'll be at the next place for 7. And so they don't get those relationships. So it's like a selfless kind of love you have to have, I guess, in the sense of like allowing those experiences that they desire, not that and they have the ability to have that, right? If their dad wasn't in the picture, sorry guys, you're coming along, you know. But I FaceTime 5 times a week, and they came out for Thanksgiving, and we'll be going back out in March and spending time with them. So we do our best to keep connected and maintain those relationships and be present for them, even though they always ask, where are you now? What time is it there?
Yeah.
So we have our 2 boys.
That's awesome. So you're in Tennessee now. Where's your next place?
It is in Alabama. Our next place
is so you
I have 2 sons with us here. Yeah, so I have 4 kids total.
Oh, okay. Do you homeschool, or how old are they?
I homeschool. So we have our 12-year-old who is mine through marriage, but he's mine. His mom's really not in the picture, so I just love him like he's mine. Sometimes he's actually just took the trash out, and he's looking at me right now as he's walking back in the RV with shorts on, and it's like 20 degrees outside. The kid's crazy. He just smiled. And then I have the 2-year-old, Mr. Luke, and so I homeschool both of them. Even Luke, you know, he's 2, but he's learning his numbers and colors and how to draw circles and stuff. And then with Matthew, I've been homeschooling him, teaching him more of like they call it unschooling. But it's not, I'm not really fully unschooling. He's learning how to do everyday life things. When Dad's working on the truck, he's under the truck working on it. I do have him read, and he has to do reports. And his last report, he read this book, and I said, okay, tell me a scene of the book. Now I want you to create that scene, but I want some piece moving. So he had to go and use wood and cut wood, and he made a trailer, and he got clay and made clay pieces and colored them and put them on his trailer and put it on his RC car so it was moving, and then failed at it and threw it away, was all upset. Now he's got to do another project to make it, but I want him to get those experiences of what he's good at, what he's not good at, how to keep going, how to keep working at it, you know. Okay, what's your mission? This is your mission. This is how you have to get it. Figure out ways, you know, and those skills they don't really happen in school. I want him to get those while we're on the road. So
what does your schedule kind of look like, homeschooling and then traveling in the RV?
It's very fluid. It's whatever today's, you know, comes into place. So if we're gonna travel that day, you know, maybe he's reading in the car. If we are, you know, we go to a lot of museums, we got to see a lot of different things. Every town we go into, we have him do an economy breakdown for us. And so every town we go into, he finds out what's the average income, who's the biggest employers, what's the population like in town, how many people live there. And so he's learning the economics of the different areas that we live into. And I think it's so important to know that wherever you move or whatever you're getting in, that looks like, you know, right now we're in a town that the average income is 23 a year. The average combined income of a home is 31, you know, so, and 23% of the people in town are under poverty level. So I think those types of things are, you know, right now, I think at 12, he's like, why do I need to know this stuff? But as he gets older, I hope he understands the importance of knowing what's going around and how to, you know, you don't have to be, I guess, you can be whatever you want to be. And sometimes it means you have to move somewhere. Sometimes it means you have to try harder in different areas, you know, but just to kind of give them that exposure and that experience.
So with this RV life, because I know you said you had a business and it was vacation rentals, correct?
Correct.
So do those two play together, or do you still have the business, or...
yeah, so I still have the business.
Or is like you sold the business and you're just living that RV life?
Well, I still have the business. At one point, we were managing we managed vacation rentals. So we owned a few, but we managed about 50 of them. And it was a lot of work, like I mentioned. So we were pretty zealous at one point. We owned the business, managing vacation rentals. Then we owned the cleaning company that cleaned the vacation rentals. And we owned the business of maintenance on the vacation rentals. So we was at one time running them all. We had about, I think, 30 employees all together. Never got a day's sleep. Like, it was so much work.
Oh, I couldn't imagine. That's so much.
Oh, it was a lot. Just me and my husband, you know, just I was basically overseeing the manager or the vacation rentals. He was doing the cleaning and the maintenance side, and we really didn't get to see each other very much. And when we did, it was like business talk all day. I was like, oh, I miss my husband. I was working with a business partner, not a spouse, and so it was nice to finally. And so my husband was like, Jess, is this really what we want to do for the rest of our lives? Like, what are we doing? And so we had a 5-year plan, and our 5-year plan was to move out of the state, sell our things, and move out of the state. It wasn't to do this, and then it was within the same year, he's like, why are we doing a 5-year plan? Let's make this a 5-month plan. Like a 5-month plan? Are you kidding me? He's like, let's do it. And I was like, 5 months? Oh my God. And it ended up being like 2 months. Like, we were like, all right, well, let's make this happen. Then what are we waiting for? Let's do it. And so within 2 months, I found a buyer for a good portion of our business. So I still managed like 6 vacation rentals, and then I manage some midterm rentals, which is enough, which I'm still making the same amount that I was making. I just don't have the overhead. When I was managing all the business, I had to clear a little over $50,000 a month just to break even. With all the processes we had, the employees, the workers' comp, all of that, it was expensive. So now I have 2 employees, myself, so there's 3 of us, and I'm making the same amount that I was making running all of that, and I'm doing it from Tennessee on a beach, So, yeah.
That's awesome. No, that's amazing. I feel like it's a dream for a lot of people to do what you're doing.
I was thinking about that too. It's about, like, I had to work really hard to get here. It wasn't, my parents were both drug addicts. It wasn't like I was able to just like give in $1 and say, here, go run for it, But I think that's what made me stronger, gave me that grit, that ability to just, if I want it, I'm going to get it, And, but you have to know when is when. I have some friends that are, I hang out, or I don't hang out with them anymore, but I'm still in contact with a lot of business owners, and they're all, on social media, they post like, what are you doing for your next big thing? And how are you making your next money? And what's your big plans this year? It's all tied to business. Mine's tied to my family. Mine's tied to memories. And I think you have to work hard to get what you want, but then you have to know when is when, and when is enough. And when, do you need that Lexus? Do you need that BMW? Do you need that purse? I don't need any of it. I make some sourdough in the morning with my 2-year-old, mixing the mix together, and we get to travel and see the world together and make memories. And that's what I need for my own mental health, for my sanity, for my, when I die, I'm not going to think, man, I wish I would have closed another deal. I'm like, dang, I'm so glad I brought my family to Tennessee to freeze our butts off.
That's so great that you're doing that. Yeah, I'm in awe of you doing this. So what advice would you give someone like who's in the military and contemplating what to do next?
I would say do it. I think a lot of, especially in the military, I met so many people that just kept talking about it. And even like in everyday life, oh, I always wanted to do it. Oh, I've always, oh, this is my dream, or make it happen. Do it. I mean, set a plan, plan it out. Don't just be dumb and just like, I quit everything and I'm just going to go live in an RV. The RV breaks down. You need gas to pull the RV. It's not the most inexpensive idea either. You still have to figure out how you're going to make money, but have a plan and just do it. And make sure that, for me, it was great I'm doing it with my best friend. I married my best friend, and he is my ride or die. And it makes it so much better to be doing it with somebody that is on the same mindset and the same goal, and who is just as much in it as I am, And so I would say, make sure you're doing it with somebody you care about, because it's not always easy. I mean, I was just talking to my new neighbor here, and he's the first couple weeks in. This is his first stay, and he's like, is it always this hard? And the first month there's a lot of emotions going on, because you just left your family, you just sold everything you had. Am I making the right decision? I don't even know how this thing ended. And water's leaking. If you do it with your best friend, anything's possible. And so I would say do it, and remember, like, especially with work, you have to have work-life balance. Like, you have to. And you don't need all those shiny things. You need something to keep you warm, a bathing suit to get, to jump in the ocean with, money to pay for your food. Nobody wants to be stressing out about how to feed themselves. But I guess the biggest, family is important, time is important, and of course money. You want to make sure that you can pay for things, but your chair in the office or your tool bag or whatever you're doing, somebody else can do it, and you can be replaced. But as women, most of us are moms. They need you more than anything. They need a mom. They need somebody present. They need someone to be loving on them, caring for them, and that's our job, is to love them, and show them the ropes of life and experience those things and make memories with them. And don't be so tied up in your share what you have to do for work. Somebody else could do it. I learned that in the military. 16 years, I thought they needed me. They didn't. They replaced me just as fast as anybody else. So, but my kids, they lost and they missed out a lot because I chose the military a lot of times over them. And that's one regret I have. I wish I would have always put them first. But you live, you learn, and now I can say that I'm doing that. I'm putting them first.
All right, Jessica, it's been such an amazing conversation with you. This lifestyle that you have is so unique. Where can people find you if they wanted to reach out, hear more about your story, and stay in touch?
Yeah, so we have an Instagram. I think a lot of us RV people now have Instagrams you can follow us on. It's On the Road to Home with an underscore between two home. There's an underscore. I think you'll put it in the message links. But so it's, yeah, On the Road to Home. And then if ever anybody needs a vacation rental in California and Fallbrook, let me know. We have, like I said, some really nice properties down there that we can, keep people in and give them a great experience. So,
Jessica, thank you so much for taking the time while you are RVing in Tennessee right now to do this podcast. Anyone that wants to reach out to her, please reach out to her. She clearly has a very unique and very inspiring story. Again, thank you so much, Jessica. And everyone else, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for having me.